What makes a legend? What mix of courage, inspiration, and inner strength propels an ordinary individual to make history, to stand out from the rest of the populace, shape the world around them, become heroes or villains? I am Funky Monkey. Come with me now as we leave the House of Love behind and enter a new realm, the House of Legends. Well, hey there, Internet, and welcome to my House of Legends. When you're in the middle of something, do you think back to how it all began? Do you look forward to your goal or destination? Middle films in a trilogy often have the most unenviable task: to convey the viewer from the end of the beginning to the beginning of the end. And oftentimes, the first installment in that trilogy is conceived to stand alone. Not so The Lord of the Rings, which is why its cornerstone installment is, in my own opinion at least, leagues ahead of the others. But perhaps I should begin at the end of the beginning. Released in 2002, The Two Towers splits our focus in three, as Frodo continues his journey to destroy the One Ring, aided by Sam and the creature Gollum, while Merry and Pippin meet the shepherds of the forest, and the last fellows end up in the horse kingdom of Rohan. This is quite the departure from the Fellowship, and marks itself out as its own adventure. So come with me once more unto the lands of Middle-earth, because the War of the Ring is about to see its first battle when we uncover the union of the Two Towers. Our plucky pair continue on through the rocks of Emyn Muil. But they are not alone. The thing about the movies over the book is that The Return of the King begins with the actual origin of Gollum, and how the ring poisoned who Gollum used to be. Don't worry, we'll get to that. And sure enough, Gollum attacks. But they are prepared, and manage to wrangle his service, for whatever that's worth. And on through the dead marshes, where a little bit of kindness will go a long way to helping Sméagol to remember himself. Sméagol, that became the creature Gollum. He was of the Storish hobbits, or river folk, but that was a long time ago, and it was his cousin Déagol that actually found the ring, but Sméagol murdered Déagol to get his hands on it. And so at last, we reached the Black Gate of Mordor. Perhaps they should have asked if there was another way into Mordor, besides the Black Gate, because there's a stairway and a tunnel that serves as a side entrance. But exactly why nobody uses this path is a subject we'll cover when we get there. But the evil of the ring is beginning to take hold of Frodo, even as Sméagol finally finds the strength to resist. The spectacle of the Southers and their Mumakil is rudely interrupted by Faramir, brother of Boromir. But then, I suppose that the clue is in the name. And when Sméagol is captured, Gollum spills the beans. And with the ring in his grasp, Faramir takes Frodo and his party to Osgiliath. But Sam finally snaps and tells Faramir the truth.
The ring drove your brother mad!
Right as the ring wraiths descend. And Sam saves the day again from Frodo's failing will. But Faramir warns of a dark terror in the pass of Cirith Ungol. And so our heroes continue on their journey to the crack of doom. Our other plucky pair were run ragged on the backs of the orcs that took them. But as these orcs bicker over their rations, they're ambushed. And our hobbits use the chaos to escape to Fangorn Forest, where they are swiftly discovered by an Ent. The aforementioned shepherds of the forest, Ents are large, ambulatory tree-like creatures with a very slow mother tongue. Though they are quite safe with Treebeard of Fangorn. even as they spy Saruman's army in the distance. And so, two unlikely witnesses are guests at the great Entmoot. And after a long and deliberately slow discussion, the Ents remain neutral. Until our cunning pair direct Treebeard to the remains of his southern border.
Deforestation's bad enough, but I can't help but think that it stings that little bit worse if some of the trees were actually your friends.
And the starkness of the truth finally spurs the Ents into action. And the river is released, flooding the forges and finally putting paid to Saruman's ambition. And so our triumphant hobbits share a few comforts on the field of victory. Our remaining fellows have caught the trail of their captured friends and quickly gain ground. But Saruman looks to make war upon the kingdom of Rohan. And worse, his magics enfeeble the king of Rohan, Theoden. But there are those still loyal, and they ambushed a pack of orcs the night before. Following the trail, the last fellows enter Fangorn. They meet someone they don't expect. Yes, Gandalf survived falling off the bridge in Moria, and actually ended up killing the Balrog in the end, but it took the last of his strength to do it. Still, he was informed that he had work to do in the mortal realms, and returned to his body. And so our now foursome make for the town of Edoras. And the new white wizard draws Theoden from the clutches of the old. But dark forces are preparing to march on Rohan. In defense of his people, Theoden leads them to Helm's Deep. But the trek is interrupted by mounted attackers. Aragorn fights bravely, but gets dragged off a cliff in the battle. But the heir of Isildur isn't quite dead, and a friendly horse conveys him to Helm's Deep with news of the army. But as the men prepare for a mighty battle, a surprise detachment of elves reinforce the fortress. And so it begins. But Saruman has a very dirty trick up his sleeve.
Black powder. Gandalf uses it to create fireworks. Saruman uses it to undo stone. Take a tip from your humble host, folks, and be careful around explosives.
But even as Saruman's forces take Helm's Deep, Gandalf brings the cavalry. But this was only the first battle in the War of the Ring.
The battle for Helm's Deep is over. The battle for Middle-earth is about to begin. And that, my friends, is our next and final legend in this account of the War of the Ring. But for now, I present you Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Surely the most legendary of middle films in cinematic trilogies. By which I mean that yes, I'm going to put this one into the House of Legends.
This isn't the first film all over again. It feels like the sequel that all sequels should want to be. So different from the first that it would be unrecognisable but for the same characters. But then, this isn't a trilogy of disconnected stories, but a single story told over 3 movies. And as the middle film of a trilogy, it would be much diminished on its own merits. But at last I get to talk about Andy Serkis, who would go on to be the first true master of motion capture, and even continue on to direct one of the Venom trilogy, as the mocap actor for Gollum, an inspiration somewhat for his emotional performance, not to mention the voice. Serkis effectively plays 2 roles, as the warring halves of his personality veer back and forth, the joyous, once innocent Schmeagol, and the dark, controlling and ring-obsessed Gollum. It's no exaggeration to call it tour de force, and while John Rhys-Davies pulls double duty here as both Gimli the Dwarf and the voice of Treebeard the Ent, and the idea of speaking inward breaths adds a distinction, it ain't Gollum. Of the rest, Bernard Hill makes a regal Theoden, King of Rohan, and this is where most of us would first have seen Carl Urban, who would go on to star in so many other projects. Of course, the returning cast are no slouches either, as Elijah Wood's Frodo slips ever further into darkness, the ring about his neck. Luckily, he has Sean Astin's Sam at his side to help anchor him in the corporeal realm. And for a film split three ways, the flow is surprisingly smooth, switching from the ring, to the politicking of Rohan, to the Entmoot of Fangorn. Though of the three, Merry and Pippin's adventure with Treebeard is by far the least served. By necessity, I suppose, as there is a lot of ground to cover. And yet, there is an element of empty spectacle in the extended battle scenes, as the great Battle of Helm's Deep does rather overtake the film once it begins, in contrast to the massively mismatched Battle of Isengard. And again, even in its theatrical cut, this movie runs to just shy of 3 hours, and in its extended edition nearly 4. Still, it's as engrossing as the first, even beginning and ending in medias res, as middle films are wont to do. So in summary, if you're looking for the first film again, then go and watch The Fellowship of the Ring again. Because The Two Towers is truly where the horse hoof meets the gravel, metaphorically speaking. The War of the Ring has begun, and Middle-earth will never be the same again.
The War of the Ring comes to its climax in our next legend as we witness the return of the king. Until then, I've been Funky Monkey, inviting you to continue your own legend and see where it ultimately leads. So long, folks.
Hey folks, Funky again. If you liked the video, you know where that button is. Or why not consider subscribing and ringing the notification bell? And if you want to be extra awesome, you can check out my crowdfunding links. And if you're not fussed about any of it, that's okay too. So long!